Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive question in medicine. How do we stop a heart attack before it even has a chance to happen? We're going to dive into a landmark study that might just have the answer, and it could change the game for millions of people.
Okay, so let's jump right in. For years, our best approach to heart disease has been what's called secondary prevention. Basically, that means we wait for someone to have a heart attack, and then we try to stop them from having a second one. But what if we could build a shield to prevent that first one from ever happening? That's the powerful idea a brand new clinical trial just put to the test.
So first things first, let's really get a handle on the problem we're up against. For people with diabetes, the threat of heart disease isn't some far-off maybe. It's a constant, silent shadow.
And this is the really critical part. Think of diabetes as hitting the fast-forward button on atherosclerosis. That's the hardening of your arteries. So what does that mean? It means someone with diabetes who feels totally fine could be walking around with some serious, silent damage building up inside their blood vessels. It's like they're heading down a dangerous road, but all the warning signs are invisible.
And that's exactly where this big investigation comes in. We're talking about the VESALIUS-CV trial. Its whole purpose was to see if we could find a new strategy, a better shield for these exact people.
Okay, so the weapon of choice in this trial? A drug called Evolocumab. Now, this is not your everyday statin. It's a whole different class of drug, a PCSK9 inhibitor. The best way to think about it is like a heat-seeking missile for bad LDL cholesterol. It just locks on and takes it out of your system with a kind of intensity that older drugs just can't match.
So how do they test this? They went for the gold standard, the most rigorous kind of study you can do. They took over 3,600 high-risk diabetic patients. And remember, none of them had ever had a heart attack, and split them into two groups. Everyone got the best standard care, statins included. But here's the twist. One group got shots of the real drug, Evolocumab, and the other got a placebo, a dummy shot. And the really cool part? Nobody knew who was getting what. Not the patients, not even their doctors. That's how you get really unbiased results.
And get this, the sheer scale of this thing is just incredible. We're talking about a massive global effort. 33 countries. They followed thousands of patients for nearly 5 years. When you have that much long-term data from all over the world, it gives the findings some serious weight. That's why doctors and scientists really sit up and take notice.
All right, so after all that time, all those people, what happened? Did this super powerful cholesterol drug actually work? Did it stop those first-time heart attacks? The answer was a huge, unmistakable yes.
So here it is, the main event. What you're looking at is the risk of having a major cardiovascular event. We're talking a heart attack, a stroke, or a heart-related death. Now, in the group that got the placebo, 7.1% of them had one of these events. But check out the group that got Evolocumab. That risk dropped all the way down to just 5%.
Let's boil that down to one powerful number. In the world of statistics, this gives you what's called a hazard ratio of 0.69. But forget the jargon. What that really means is that taking this drug cut the relative risk of having that first devastating heart event by an incredible 31%. Let me tell you, in cardiology, a number like that is a huge, huge deal.
And the good news didn't stop there. The researchers then looked at a broader set of problems, including things like needing a stent or bypass surgery to open up clogged arteries. And the results were just as impressive. The risk dropped from 10.5% down to 7.6%. That's another 31% drop. It shows that the protection this drug offered was really solid and consistent across the board.
Okay, so we've seen the numbers, and they're impressive. But what does this all actually mean for you, for me, for a real person sitting in a doctor's office? Let's bring this out of the lab and into real life.
This quote from the researchers really hits the nail on the head. For a cardiologist, this is way more than just a new pill. It's a whole new playbook. It's a wake-up call to stop being reactive, to stop waiting for that first heart attack to hit. Instead, it's about getting in there early and aggressively to prevent it from ever happening in the first place. It's all about being proactive.
So you might be wondering, who exactly are we talking about here? Well, the study was really specific. So let's run through the checklist. Do you have diabetes? Check. Have you never had a heart attack or stroke before? Check. Are you still considered high risk for one? And finally, is your bad cholesterol still 90 or above even though you're already taking a statin? If you're nodding along to all of those, then you're exactly the kind of person who benefited in this trial.
And this is where it gets really practical. This knowledge completely changes the conversation you can have with your doctor.
You can walk in there now armed with this info and say, hey, let's talk about high-risk primary prevention. It's your chance to really dig into your personal risk factors, look at your numbers, and figure out if a stronger shield like this might be right for you.
Okay, now before we get carried away, it's really important to put these results in context. Like with any big study, the devil's in the details. The findings are amazing, but we have to be clear about who they apply to. So let's break down a few key considerations. First, they followed patients for about 5 years. That's a good amount of time, for sure, but we don't know what happens over 10, 20, or 30 years. Second, remember, this was for a very specific group, high-risk people with diabetes. We can't just assume it works for everybody. And third, and this is super important, this drug was an add-on to statins. It's not a replacement. It's an extra layer of defense on top of that standard therapy.
So, what's the big takeaway here? The Vesalius CV trial is a really big deal. It proves that for the right person, we don't have to just sit back and wait for a heart attack to happen. We actually have the tools to get ahead of it, to be proactive. And that leaves us with this incredible, hopeful question. Are we finally at the dawn of a new era? An era where that first heart attack isn't an inevitability, but something we can actually prevent?